Hello, dear viewers. For those that do not know, Schrodinger's Gatomon is a famous Digimon thought experiment in which we take a healthy Gatomon and put it inside a sealed box. We then fill the box with the X virus, knowing that the Gatomon has a 50-50 chance of developing the X antibody or, in 1 hour, being dead. After an hour has passed, until the Gatomon is observed, it can neither be called alive or dead. This is Schrodinger's Gatomon. This is also the point in the story where you politely tell the secretary of the Digivet clinic that you just brought your Gatomon in for a routine checkup and demand answers as to why Dr. NAMCO started this sick experiment on your precious Gatomon, and that no, you do not want a replacement Gatomon named Scarlet Nexus. What's up, guys? I'm DigiDustin, and today, while I cannot prove that it is alive, I will be debunking some of the lead reasonings I have seen for claiming that Digimon Survive is dead. I won't be moving forward with my opinions alone, however. Joining me today to keep me honest as well as present his own theories on the matter is Ramon, although you may know him as the voice behind God Hand Gaming. Thank you for joining me today.
Hey there, everybody, and hello, Dustin. Thanks for having me on.
It's likely no secret that I believe that Digimon Survive is alive and well, but where do you stand on the matter?
Well, I'd like to take a stance by saying I am keeping hope alive. I think the game is alive and well. However, I did just watch the trailer right before this, and after seeing all those stunning visuals and concept art, and then seeing that ugly 2019 right at the end, I gotta say, I'm pretty pissed.
Well, no reason to leave our audience trying to recall events from 2 years ago. Let's play that trailer. Without a doubt, the game looks gorgeous, and that 2019 at the end is heartbreaking. Broken promises are the worst. But at least we were given an updated cinematic trailer in late July of 2019 that gave us a delayed 2020 release. At any rate, how I would like to proceed is that we'll bring up a series of theories that we've seen regarding why Digimon Survive is dead, and then debunk, or at least attempt to debunk them. Sound good to you, Ramon?
Yeah, of course.
So the first contention I see that people have with Survive, ignoring the media blackout that we'll come back to, is that as we've seen with the first teaser trailer, the game was originally set to be released in 2019, and we're already more than halfway through 2020 with no set release date.
Yeah, you do make a fair point about there still being no concrete release date, though there have been plenty of games in the past that have gotten similar treatment. The Final Fantasy VII Remake, Final Fantasy 15, Kingdom Hearts. Man, Square Enix really makes a bad habit of this, don't they? And most of those games came out of development okay, right?
Right, and while delaying a release date is always a blow to both the community waiting for it as well as the game itself, perhaps because it is a blow to the game's sales, we should all be more forgiving for them. After all, the first thoughts that come to mind for why a game would be delayed are either to improve the quality for consumers or to avoid crunch, which, for those who are unaware, are inhumane working conditions generally forced on studios for AAA titles and even smaller games to meet a deadline set by the company producing the game. Many times a delayed deadline is not actually the result of negligence or laziness on the part of anyone involved.
I do think that it's the responsibility of the publisher to set realistic goals and to try to understand that these games are still made by humans, incredibly talented humans, but humans nonetheless. Though I'm not sure this has much to do with the delay. If anything, I'm sure Bandai is trying to play damage control by not saying anything. We do live in a rather uncertain time, so by staying silent, they might hope to avoid any more negative press by making another empty promise.
Speaking of companies, the second theory I see discussed, though not as prevalently, is that the studio working on it wasn't able to cut it. For those that do not know, Namco Bandai does not develop all of their games in-house, and this time they hired a lesser-known studio, Witchcraft, to develop Digimon Survive. And if you look them up on, say, Giant Bomb, you can see the cause of concern. In over a decade, this will be the 6th game they have developed and the first to both be international as well as released on a home console. Your thoughts?
Well, I will say there may be a little cause for concern when they've only released a small amount of games, but I feel that small studios put a lot more love into their games as opposed to those larger AAA teams who are ruled more closely by the higher-ups.
So first, I would like to point out that while Witchcraft has only developed 6 games themselves, they have offered support in a variety of ways on many other games. Honestly, though, the fear surrounding Witchcraft is completely misguided, and there is no other studio I would rather have developing this game. But to properly explain why this game transcends the Digimon franchise, and why seeing the name Witchcraft should offer hope to those waiting for the game, I suppose I should give a minor history lesson. You see, in the long agos of the 1980s, there was a young video game company named Telenet Japan that founded a few video game studios, but namely one known as Riot, who worked on the Valis series of games. In 1994, though, the company restructured and dissolved Riot. While many of the members left the company, some were integrated into another of Telenet's studios, Wolf Team. While many might not know Wolf Team at first, they may be more well known after Telenet was going under and sold them to Bandai Namco in 2003, renaming them to Namco Tales Studios. Now let's observe 2 companies that were founded by ex-Riot employees. The first being Faycraft, founded in 1994 by Shojiro Endo, and the second being MediaVision, founded in 1993. While the first made nothing notable before going out of business in 2000, the later is still in business and can be clearly identified for games such as Valkyria Chronicles, Wild Arms, and perhaps most closely related to the topic at hand, the Digimon Story series. Finally, we have Witchcraft, a studio founded by both Shojiro Endo and Akifumi Koneko of MediaVision and the director of the Wild Arms series. So to summarize, while it's hard to say how much supervision Bandai Namco has over the project, Digimon Survive is a reunion of the now defunct Studio Riot over 30 years in the making. I know we all want to see this game come out as soon as possible and be amazing, but I can only imagine the hopes and desires of the studio for this game to be a smashing success.
What a nice sentiment. A coincidental reunion. I guess that's the thing about smaller studios. The employees often reform under a different name. Happens all the time.
Another topic I see brought up, especially since we haven't heard much about the game this year, is that COVID killed Digimon Survive. Oddly ironic, no?
The irony is not lost on me, and I'm sure COVID set it back a bit, but if I'm speaking frankly, we here in the US are the only ones really still dealing with it on a large scale. So as time goes on, I feel that becomes less and less of an excuse.
Similar to the scare over the company working on the title, I still feel this is a highly misguided reason to think the game is dead. While COVID is indeed a situation many, if not all of us, have yet to see in our lifetimes, and it is possible in a number of ways it certainly could end the production of the game, following industry standards and even information we do have, it seems highly unlikely. First, we should look to the latest piece of information we did receive in April of 2020, well into the pandemic. Thanks to a typo in Famitsu article due to an altered box art stating that the game went from a 2020 release date to being delayed indefinitely, we were given the welcome news that the game is still on track for a 2020 release. Perhaps more importantly is to look at other video games that have been impacted by COVID, though. Certain titles may have been delayed due to travel restrictions and the like, but almost all of these titles were only pushed back by roughly 3 months. Some people may point to video game sales as being affected by COVID, and they would be correct. Only contrary to their opinions, sales have increased dramatically due to people staying at home. There is naturally an audience being left out, those who simply pick up games from their local game store, but even that is becoming less of an issue as stores around the world start to reopen.
COVID is a monster that is shaking humanity to its very core, but the only way to beat it is through unity. We must protect ourselves and those around us in what may go down in history as the new Dark Ages. So take it from God Hand himself. Wear your mask.
And now we come to the big bad in the room, the media blackout that has stirred so much ill will and mistrust within the community.
Now this is where I start to cast a little bit of blame on Banco. They didn't have to leave us in the dark like they did. I'm not saying that a release date was necessary, but some form of news would have been very welcome. Wouldn't you agree?
While I have a lot to say on this matter, I think that it's important for us to look back at the theories until now, as each one I feel holds a small piece of information with regards to this blackout. First, we have the delay from 2019 to 2020 with no set release date, even though we're halfway through the year. I would, however, like to point out that not only did we get our 2020 delay in August of last year, but the date was reaffirmed in June of this year. June was far from a long time ago, and though this affirmation was completely unintentional, makes me question if this is even a concern. Second, we come to the company working on the game, Witchcraft, and the concern that a smaller studio might not be able to cut it. While there are many examples of large companies hiring smaller studios for larger titles, perhaps one of my favorite stories is the one behind No Man's Sky. Now, No Man's Sky does show a few things that we might forget, namely that even if your game is a flop, by appearing in the media enough and making enough promises, regardless of if they're kept or not, your game will sell well. So why then are we not seeing tons of advertisement for Digimon Survive? After all, sales are what Bandai Namco is after, right? Well, kind of. Yes, sales of Survive is important, but there is a major difference between it and No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky was a standalone title that was met with horrendous criticism for years after its release. Digimon Survive, however, is unequivocally attached to the Digimon franchise. If this game was hyped up constantly and failed to meet expectations, it wouldn't just be a stain on Witchcraft, but the entire franchise, and would lead many faithful fans to jump ship. Bandai Namco has too many long-term consequences to be careless with this game's marketing. That said, Witchcraft could follow Hello Games' example and work in complete silence for years, making their game better and better. But as many still loathe No Man's Sky, the term too little too late would be fitting. Although I do recommend anyone watching who enjoys a good success story watch The Ingoodening of No Man's Sky. It's very inspirational. And finally, before looking at another possible reason for the media blackout, we have COVID. While I have said that the virus has had a surprisingly little effect on the video game industry compared to others, and has even bolstered sales, there is one aspect of the industry that has been affected that cannot be ignored: marketing. Many companies within the industry rely on large-scale in-person events such as E3 and even Anime Expo to reveal the latest news for their games, as it will both be when the most people will be watching as well as when people will be most hyped to see new information and titles. With these conventions being forced to close due to COVID, companies are scrambling for new marketing plans, and companies like Bandai Namco, who release a large amount of games each year, are especially in a pickle, as they have to both prioritize which games to market and when and where each one should be marketed. What might appear as missed opportunities to us might be intentional marketing ploys, as we cannot view this as a conventional year for video game news.
There's no way COVID could stop the game industry. Most modern computers can run a game engine or modeling software, so all they did was work from home. Not too big of an issue. It's not really an in-person job anyway. The idea of having an office for this kind of work is archaic in modern times. Literally all the stuff you need to do, you can do at home. Simple and effective.
Now, I would like to talk about my biggest theory for the media blackout, as well as something that has been missing from the conversation to date: next-gen consoles. If you recall, the last piece of information we officially received on Digimon Survive before the blackout was in August of 2019. This coincidentally is when we first started hearing of the next-gen dev kits rolling out. Now, there's a lot to be said about why Bandai Namco would want Digimon Survive on the next-gen consoles, as well as delaying it to 2020. This may have also been around the time they were officially deciding on the anime reboot, the card game, and so on, making 2020 the official year of Digimon, as seen in the Digimon Project trailer, which would create hype around the IP and thus boost sales for the game. As for reserving it to be a launch title for the Series X and PS5, putting away thoughts that every game on those systems need to push the graphical boundaries, one thing that we constantly do not see on next-gen consoles at launch are an extensive library, anime-based games, and strategy games. Why? Because they don't push the envelope of the system and really show it off. But what this does mean is there is an entire market that is left out at launch, as well as consumers wanting any content they can get their hands on. Digimon would not just be filling a role and being consumed by many people who would otherwise never look at it, but it would also simply exist as a next-gen game, which would be reason enough for many to play. This, of course, is no way saying it will not be available on all of the current-gen consoles. It would be foolish not to be, simply that reserving it as a launch title is a good marketing decision. If they did decide to port it to the new systems, though, why have we not heard anything about it? Why have they not used their live stream events like Play Anime Live to mention it? Well, the answer is likely simpler than you think. At the time of recording this video, Play Anime Live on its official channel has received roughly 45,000 views and almost double the dislikes to likes. On top of that, anyone watching and waiting for Digimon Survive news is likely going to buy the product when it releases regardless of marketing. You know what came out later than Play Anime Live and received more than 45,000 views though? Xbox Game Showcase, which has received over 600,000 views on their official channel alone, even though they broadcast in a myriad of languages separating view counts between them, so the number is actually likely much larger. Or if we look back 1 month to Sony's event for the PS5 on their official channel, they received over 13 million views, which, by the way, is well over 100 times the number that Play Anime Live received. Now, if the rumors are true and Sony's planning an August event for the PS5, there's no better place for Bandai Namco to reveal that Digimon Survive is coming to the next-gen systems, as the game will reach a far greater audience than just fans of the IP, and in fact will be the best possible way to spread the IP. This would make Digimon Survive more than just a game, and even more than a reunion 30 years in the making. It could be the juggernaut that slams this IP into people's houses that would never look at it otherwise.
You know, you bring up a good point. We are quickly reaching the end of this console generation, so it could be that one of the other, much larger, console companies approach Banco to strike a deal about showing off Digimon Survive for the new console generation. And, contrary to popular belief, words take time. Quality ones, anyway. I know I speak for everyone when I say, I'm willing to wait for Survive if it's a quality game.
Well, that concludes my thoughts on why it's not fair to call the game dead. I would like to once more remind everyone that until it's observed, Schrodinger's Gatomon can neither be called alive or dead. While I see many reasons to believe that it is alive and well, there is always the possibility it is not. Maintain hope, but do not let that hope bring you misery. As we conclude, I'd like to air the final trailer we received last August to once again remind everyone what we're waiting for. Until next time, guys, stay wholesome.
Okay, everyone, be sure to check me out on Godhand Gaming. Okay, thanks, bye!
Ohayo. 昨日寝れた？
今朝地震あったよな。マジでビビった。教育史跡ってどの辺でしたっけ？
ちょっと待ってね。こっちに詳しい地図。
おはよ
もうびっくりさせないでよ、ミノルくん。
ごめん。朝から元気だな。ミュウ、そろそろ起きろよ。おいミュウ、飯が冷めるだろ。あいつまた一人で。 おい邪魔だろ。
ごめんなさい。
チッ。
わあ態度悪。そんなんじゃ女子に嫌われるよ。
うっせえな。
続いてニュースです。
あ、
今朝5時頃、鹿部市で震度3の地震がありました。
これここじゃない？
落石事故が起きており、警察や消防では地域に警戒を促しています。
ここは一体。
群発する地震により土砂災害の危険がありますので、引き続き鹿部市近隣にお住まいの方は。
おいおい、見学先の安全性とか大丈夫なのかよ。よしみんな、そろそろ出発の時間だ。
引率の OB の言うことをよく聞くように。
遊びに来たんじゃないんだぞ。時間厳守で行動すること。てれ。たくま？ああ、なんでもない。
ぬくもりは消えず、みとものあらじ、この世界、みたまの子はね、響きけり。
Hey guys, one last thing. So, we got no information for about a year, but the moment I planned to bring you this nice video, we got a few drops since I recorded everything. And I'd just like to share real quick that, first of all, while Amazon did cancel Digimon Survive pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch, they canceled a few other pre-orders for different games. It doesn't seem to be exclusive to Digimon Survive. And more importantly, the next day we received official word that Digimon Survive will be coming out in January of 2021. Now, we haven't seen any trailers or anything, but since it's official word, we should take it with a bit more than a grain of salt. Okay, once more. Until next time, guys, stay wholesome.